I suggest to you that the topic of how to get a job you'll really like is extremely important, or it should be to you. I'm getting some feedback. And that's because we're talking about your career. We're talking about your happiness. We're talking about all of the time and money you've spent to get to where you are, and to pursue the profession of law and not be professionally satisfied would be nothing short of a tragedy. And so I suggest to you respectfully that I think you ought to look at your professional satisfaction and doing all you can to achieve professional satisfaction as being as important as any class that you take at Hastings, especially including mine, and that you consider your professional satisfaction to be a non-negotiable, irreducible minimum for your life. So how do you achieve professional satisfaction? Why don't we first talk about what are the ingredients that go in to professional satisfaction? And I want to begin by talking about some survey research. There was an article published in the ABA Journal titled, "Are We Happy Now?" which sought to provide some guidance to lawyers about what goes into being happy, what goes into being professionally satisfied. And there were a whole series of questions and answers that they recited, but I just want to talk about 5 of them. And I want to talk about what your impressions are of what the correct answers are and what these answers tell us about what it means to be satisfied and how you can achieve professional satisfaction. So I want to begin with the first question that was reported on, and that is this. The National Opinion Research Center at the University of Chicago surveyed workers in 198 occupations, asking whether they were very satisfied with their careers. Among the professionals surveyed were lawyers, doctors, accountants, clergy, and teachers. Lawyers, doctors, accountants, clergy, and teachers. What do you think those professionals in those 5 groups reported with respect to their degree of professional satisfaction? Who reported the highest level of professional satisfaction? Lawyers, doctors, accountants, clergy, teachers. Anybody want to make a suggestion? What do you think? Teachers, okay. I see some nods. Anybody else want to make a suggestion? Clergy, okay. Yes, sir. Accountants, okay. So, how many people here think that the top answer would be clergy or teachers? Just raise your hand, clergy or teachers. So just about every hand went up in the air. And the correct order is clergy, teachers, doctors, lawyers, accountants. Now, it's remarkable that nearly all of you had it essentially correct, yet you're not going to become clerics or teachers, at least not right away. Why do you think that's the correct order? Clergy, teachers, doctors, lawyers, accountants. Why do you think that's the order? Money? No, it's not money. In fact, it's actually inversely related to money, isn't it? Right? Because clergy make the least. And the doctors, lawyers, and accountants make the most, yet they're the least professionally satisfied. Yes, sir.
Does it have to do with purpose?
Purpose. I don't know. I mean, I think maybe accountants would tell you that their job is purposeful, lawyers too. Maybe some other things. What else might explain the answer? Yes, sir.
Well, maybe they can see the effects of their work.
They see the effects of their work. I think that's true. I think that not meaning to diminish the work of an accountant, but they tend to work with numbers, and it used to be spreadsheets, but now I guess it's something electronic. I guess they're so-called spreadsheets. But they don't have as much, let's say, client contact as a teacher would have, or a member of the clergy would have, where they have direct pastoral relationships with their parishioners, and they're providing guidance, and they're hoping to see progress, talking about purpose, right? And the same is true of teachers. Teaching is very rewarding, isn't it? I'm sure some of you have been teachers. You know what I'm talking about when I say that. But there's that human contact with your students or with your parishioners. And you don't have that to the same degree, do you, if you're an accountant? And why would doctors be ahead of lawyers? Well, again, there's more human contact that doctors have with their patients than lawyers have with their clients, at least in some situations, right? Depending upon the kind of job the lawyer has, maybe there are some jobs where the lawyer would rarely see their client. I think you could think of the kinds of firms or employers that might be versus the kinds of legal jobs where you would have contact with your clients, right? So let's think about what we've learned from that, and let's think about 4 more questions and answers. So there's something called US News and World Report, and they do something called ranking law schools. Anybody ever heard of that? Oh, okay. And so they according to this question, they rank law schools into 4 tiers. And the question is, of graduates of each of those tiers, which tiers graduates report the highest degree of professional satisfaction? What do you think? So you have 4 options now. First tier, second tier, third tier, fourth tier. What do you think is the correct answer? Which tiers graduates report the highest degree of professional satisfaction?
4.
Who said 4? You said 4. Why do you think 4?
Truth be told, I have already read.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Is that Gracie?
Yes.
Gracie.
Sorry. Because
Okay, no. I'm not calling on you anymore, at least in this class. I mean, I can get even, you know. So, okay. If 4 is the correct answer, because she knows the answer. But even without my telling you or Gracie telling you the answer, how many would have said first tier are the happiest? Anybody would have said first tier are the happiest? No. Now, isn't that kind of like a hair on fire moment, though, if you think about it? I mean, if you get into a first tier law school, shouldn't you then have the highest chance of being happy? I mean, just sort of logically, shouldn't that follow? Yet I've given this talk many, many times, and everybody knows, all the law students know the answer is not first tier. They don't have to have read the article. They know it. Okay, why? Why aren't first tier law school graduates happiest? Or for that matter, second tier law school graduates happiest? Why? Anybody know? Yes, sir.
There's a tremendous amount of performance pressure, and there's a tremendous amount of debt. A lot of those first year schools are very expensive, and that burden waves.
There are some second tier law schools that are expensive too. Yeah. Yes, there's a lot of debt burden. So what does the debt burden produce?
Choosing your career based on paying off that debt.
Choosing your career based upon paying off your debt. And so what does that cause? What does that cost?
job satisfaction.
Okay, because you go to a job you don't like so you can pay back your debt. Is that correct? I see you nodding affirmatively. All right, so what might be a place where you could go and pay off your debt? Where can you go to work if you can get a job there that will help you pay off your debt? According to you, where do you think that might be? Yes, sir. Government? I don't think so. That won't be the first place to go. I mean, you'll get into the law school's debt forgiveness program, which is good, but it's what, 10 years? So 10 years to pay off your debt. Now that would be fine if we had a work life expectancy of, let's say, 200 years. That makes a lot of sense because then it would be 5% of your work life expectancy. And that would feel okay. But your work life expectancy is somewhere, well, it keeps rising as far as I'm concerned, but it's probably somewhere in the 40-year range. So 25% of your work life expectancy spent paying off your debt through the government public service route feels significant. I know I'm being recorded, so I'm just going to say significant. Okay. So yes, sir.
Big law firm.
Big law firm. Big law firm. Yes, true. What's the starting salary at the big law firms these days?
I don't know. Pretty high though.
Pretty high, yeah. I read it's now cracked $200,000 in the first year. And so that can be attractive. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but only 27% of grads from top 10 law schools say they are very satisfied with their career choices. Whoa. 27% of grads from top 10 law schools say they are very satisfied with their career choices. Okay, third question. Which one of the following factors in the work of a lawyer correlates least with higher reported levels of career satisfaction? A, the degree to which the lawyer sees his or her work as contributing to the betterment of society. B, the latitude the lawyer has to make key decisions about the shape of work products and services. C, the amount of creative challenge his or her work affords. D, the frequency and quality of interactions in the lawyer's work. E, the lawyer's level of income. Which of these factors correlates least with higher reported levels of career satisfaction? Compensation is correct. Now, are we starting to see some unifying characteristics to our answers? Right, going back to clergy and teachers versus lawyers, doctors, and accountants. Income correlating least with satisfaction. Fourth tier graduates being the most satisfied. By the way, those are the ones who were least able to get the very highly paid jobs coming right out of law school. They're not going to tend to get the jobs in the big firms. All right, fourth question. Which order of types of law practice corresponds to how satisfied lawyers in each practice type say they are with their careers? So you have three choices. One is public sector work. Second is small firm and solo practice. That's considered to be one category. And then third would be big firm. So well, let's start with this. Which produces the least professional satisfaction according to the survey results? Big firm, smaller solo, public service. Which produces the least professional satisfaction? I hear mumbles of big firm, and the mumbles are correct. Big firm. Big firm. 44% of big firm lawyers are satisfied with their career choice. Let's examine that statistic for a second, right? 44% of big firm lawyers say they are satisfied with their career choice. That doesn't count the ones who were in a big firm and left and are someplace else because they weren't satisfied, because they're not in the big firm now to answer the question about their satisfaction in a big firm. And the 44% number is not very satisfied, okay? It's just satisfied. Last question. What aspect of the actual practice of law most disappoints lawyers when compared to their expectations at the start of their careers? What aspect of the practice of law most disappoints lawyers when compared to their expectations at the start of their careers? This is a particularly hard question, I think, for you, because it's asking you to think about what you'll feel when you're kind of like my age about what disappointed you about the practice of law compared to what you thought it would be like when you were your age. With me on that? So here are the choices. Their level of financial remuneration, their pay. B, the intellectual challenge of their job. C, their ability to contribute to the public good. Or D, the quality of their relationships with their colleagues. Which part of the actual practice of law most disappoints lawyers compared to what they thought it was going to be like? What do you think? C is correct. The ability to contribute to the public good. Only 16% of lawyers have had their expectations met in that regard. Ooh, that's also concerning. So what's the upshot? The upshot is that, at least among most people, this may not be you, but among most people, what is most satisfying is to have direct contact with the people who you're working with, to be someplace small, to feel that you're doing something that contributes to the public good, that pay ends up not being important in terms of professional satisfaction. In fact, it's somewhat inverse. And that you don't have to go to a fancy law school to be happy. In fact, if you don't, you're probably going to be happier. You know, what's also remarkable is you all knew these answers before I asked the questions. You know, I mean, we have to go through the exercise of me asking them and so forth, but you already knew it. And it's a concern. It's a concern to me. Okay, I mean, I'm here as a volunteer basically, and I want to see you do well, and I want to see you be happy. And if you're going to be unhappy, I'm going to feel like I was a failure. And you know, I think you need to push hard to make sure that you don't fall into these statistics. Don't let it happen to you. But you can do it. I'm going to tell you how you do it. So here's the way you do it. 4 steps. Number 1, decide what area of law you think you like. Now, if you're a first-year student, maybe it's easier to decide what area of law you don't like. But I do think by second semester or first year, and certainly by second and third year of law school, you have a sense as to what area of law you like better than other areas of law. Restrict yourself to the practice of law in the area of law that you think you're going to like. Don't go work someplace that doesn't do work that you find to be interesting. You're going to be sure to be unhappy. That's number 1. Number 2, where do you want to live? You want to live in the Bay Area? You want to live in Spokane, Washington? Right? So you want to live in Allentown, Pennsylvania? Where do you want to live? Once you figure out number 1 and number 2, then research the potential employers in the geographical region that engages in the area of practice that interests you. Figure out the best places to do that kind of work in that place. And it might be Spokane, Washington. And it might be, you know, it might be trust and estates work, for example. Now, maybe you haven't had trust and estates, but some people like it. And it's a good area of law to be in. That's not what I do, but it's a good area of law to be in. And some people really enjoy it. And let's say you want to live in Spokane, Washington. So you'll work in a trust and estates firm in Spokane. That's fine. That's good. You're where you want to be, and you're doing what you want to do where you want to be. Now, how many trust and estates firms come to Hastings as part of on-campus interviewing? Okay, not any from Spokane. 0. So you're not going to find that firm through OCI. And in fact, while the team does a phenomenal job of helping law students get jobs and get jobs they'll like, the reality is that they don't really know any more about trust and estates firms in Spokane, I don't think, than you could learn in 10 minutes by poking around on your laptop. And one thing that everybody at Hastings knows how to do is to read a website, right? And you all know how to sort out the baloney website from the real website, right? Especially when it comes to lawyers. You know, the lawyer that has the Trust Me website without any accomplishments, without any real idea of what they've done is not necessarily a lawyer that you'd want to hire or work for. Kind of like the lawyer on the billboard without having some real bona fides about what they have done for others. That's not sufficient. You want to see people who've been leaders in their field, maybe in trusts and estates, maybe they're the section chiefs of that area in their community, in their state. Maybe they've written in the area, maybe they have an impressive client list. I mean, you know how to figure these things out. And you can also make phone calls or send emails to people in Spokane. Again, our apocryphal Spokane, presumably you want to go there for a reason, so you have people there that you know, and you can figure out who does good trust and estates work in Spokane. And then now you've gotten through step 3. You figured out the potential employers in the area of practice that you want to work in the place where you want to be. And then you got to get about the business of contacting them. And I suggest to you that you write them letters. I think letters and emails is fine. You know, email and US mail on the letter is good, it's fine. But letters, I believe, are very important to send. Why? Well, okay, first of all, I'm an employer. I'm a legal employer. So I know, first of all, I don't open a lot of emails because the tech guy in my office tells me that I shouldn't be opening emails I don't recognize. And I'm supposed to send him the emails I don't recognize for him to tell me whether I can open it. But do you think I really get to that? I mean, it's hard to get to all that. So there's probably a lot of stuff I don't open. And, you know, if you're going to be cold contacting folks by email, a lot of folks aren't even going to open the email. Just the way things are in 2022. On the other hand, I get absolutely no mail. I get no mail. I mean, I'm talking about physical mail. Yeah, I get an occasional like legal periodical, or I'll get an advertising circular, that kind of thing. But actual letters, about the only letters I get are from inmates asking me for representation, which I read them all carefully, but that's it. That's about it. I get almost no mail. If I get a letter, I read it. And by the way, it gets to me right away, because even if I'm out here, and this is true of lawyers generally, the mail gets opened by somebody in the office if they're not there, and it gets scanned and it gets sent to the lawyer, wherever it is they are, and they see it same day. And lawyers are reading their mail, for sure. So if you send a letter, it's going to be read. And if you send a letter to somebody who is not engaging in OCI, and by the way, the firm that does trust and estates work in Spokane, and they're not just not coming to Hastings. They're not coming to any place in the Bay Area. They're not coming probably to any place anywhere, actually literally anywhere. Okay, they might go, if there's a law school in Spokane, they might go to the law school. They probably don't, because there are very few trust and estates firms in San Francisco that come to Hastings for OCI. So why should the trust and estates firm in Spokane go to local Spokane law school? OCI it's a creature of potential legal employers that run the circuit around America. It's the big law firms and it's the big employers. Of course, the DA's office may come here. They're not going to go. I know they're not going to go to Chicago, but it's those large employers. In fact, fewer than 1% of American legal employers are coming along to the campus here, or to the campus across the bay at Berkeley, or at Santa Clara, or at Golden Gate, or at Stanford. They're not going. but where they do go, they're going a whole bunch of places. So if you send the letters that I'm talking about to the apocryphal trust and estates firm in Spokane, you are not going to be competing with everybody else in your class for the job. In fact, you're not going to be competing really with anybody else for the job except for the market forces that that law firm has, which essentially boils down to, do we need somebody? And even if we don't need somebody, is this somebody that we think we should talk to? That's about it. And by writing the letter, you're demonstrating an initiative that a lawyer will truly appreciate seeing. I know I do. I know I do. And if I get letters, I don't make the hiring decisions in our firm, at least I don't do the first cuts, but people get interviews based upon initiative of writing letters and not going through the sort of tried and true treadmill of OCI. So that means a lot. What else means a lot? Hastings means a lot. The name Hastings has resonance across America, particularly in California. You have leverage. You may not think you have leverage. It may be the first time in your life that you've had leverage, but you have leverage. It means a lot to people that you go to Hastings. So if you send somebody a letter and you tell them that you're a law student at Hastings, they're going to sit up straight and pay attention. And they're going to at least consider talking to you. So I also suggest to you that these letters / emails, that you make some of them for a job interview. You make some of them requesting information, an informational interview. Lawyers love to mentor. They love to help young lawyers to be. You will get informational interviews for sure. In fact, you'll get job interviews for sure. And an informational interview, of course, is very useful to get information, but it's also something that you can easily convert into a job interview. You know, you have your 15 minutes worth of questions, and then it's fine for you to say to the person, thanks for all the information. By the way, is there any chance of work with your firm for the summer? You know, practice it in the mirror a couple of times. And it's fine. And that's been done with me. People have said to me, and what they told me was an informational interview. They've asked me that question. I usually say something like, is this an informational interview, or are you here for a job? And they'll probably say, well, I'm here for a job. And I'll say, okay, thanks for telling me. And then I'll say, you need to talk to this other person in the firm. But yeah, they're going to go down and talk to that person in the firm. And so you don't have to worry that much about, okay, who do I select for informational interviews versus job interviews? It can be a mix. It's fine. It's fine. You got to cast a lot of lines into the water. Okay? You got to make it a project. Okay? It's got to be a project. It's really important. You got to do it. You got to take it really seriously. And don't take the first job that's offered to you just because you got a job offer. You know, play the field, see what's out there, see the kinds of jobs that are available to you. You'd be surprised at the opportunities that you're going to have if you apply yourself to it. Okay, what else? Think about splitting your summer. Again, thinking about work-life expectancy, experience expectancies. You only have 2 summers. You have 2 summers. That's your chance to figure out where you want to work. So I would rather see you try to split your summers even twice if you could do it. So you could have 4 opportunities. If you end up going to like the trust and estates firm in, let's say, Spokane, they're going to be happier having you there for 6 or 8 weeks than for 10 or 12 or 14 weeks. Why? Because first of all, if they're not really used to hiring law students, they're going to have some trepidation about the commitment of themselves to you for the summer. It's not just the money, it's also finding appropriate work for you to do and supervising you and making you feel comfortable. If they know it's 6 weeks, it's easier than if it's 12 or 14 weeks. So it's actually an easier sell for you to say, could I come work for you for 6 weeks? Easier. Now, I know the big firms will not let you split your summer. Way back when I was in your position, the big firms let you split your summer. And then they figured out, oh, if we let law students split their summer, we're going to divide by 2 the chances that we're going to get them to come work here permanently. Anybody know that before I said it? Okay. That's if you didn't know that before I said it, that's maybe your first clue that maybe there's something about the formula that doesn't make sense for my interests as a law student, right? Because if the law firm isn't sufficiently confident of their ability to attract you based upon their bona fides, but rather denying you the opportunity to work elsewhere by a rule, we don't let you split your summer, what does that tell you about whether you're going to be happy there in the long run? So I would be resistant to that. And also, you can work it out, even if you go to work for a big firm for the summer, and it becomes difficult in terms of the whole summer is sucked up. You can find an employer who will take you in for, let's say, the first 3 weeks of the summer before your program starts, and then the last 3 weeks, right? So you get a 6-week experience, or maybe 4 weeks at the end, or 4 weeks at the beginning, or 2 at the end, and then 3 weeks while you're in your second year of law school, right? On a half-time basis, or in your third year of law school. In other words, if you're willing to be creative, and the law firm wants you, they're going to work with you. So think about that and try to do it. Okay. Now, I think a lot of you are probably thinking to yourself, okay, some of this makes sense, but what about that debt issue? I mean, come on. It's going to be easy for you to say, Professor, but I got major debt, right? All right, let's talk about that. A whole bunch of things I want to say to you about the debt issue. Number one, be careful of the economics here. Okay, yeah. Okay, I won't say any names of any law firms, but a law firm will pay you $205,000 a year starting out down the street in a tall building, okay, in San Francisco. Where are you going to live? Are you going to live in Spokane? I don't think so. Right? You're going to live someplace where you're going to pay some crazy number for your apartment, right? What does it cost for anything in San Francisco? Anything close to where you're going to be working, right? It's a crazy number. And then that's just the beginning, right? Because everything else that goes into living in the Bay Area. And we could have that conversation about LA and about Chicago and about Washington, D.C. and about New York City, all the places where the big firms tend to be. On the other hand, if you're in Spokane, the cost of living is a lot less. Again, this is the apocryphal Spokane. The cost of living is a lot less. And so, 100 and X thousand, 20, 30, 40, 105,000, some number around there is like 190 or 205 or 210,000 in San Francisco. That's point one. Point two is beware of the lure of the first year salary, but what's it really going to be like going forward? Is it going to be inflation raises going forward? Whereas if you're working in the trust and estates firm in Spokane, you're in a 6-person firm, okay? I promise you, guarantee promise. I know what the word guarantee means. I know I'm on film. So you can come and force a guarantee later, okay? All right? I said it. I meant it. If you're in a 6-person firm in Spokane, you're going to be doing more valuable work for that firm from the beginning versus working in the 1,000-lawyer firm anywhere. You're easily replaced at the 1,000-lawyer firm, easily. By the way, watch it happen. Okay? But at the 6-lawyer firm, you're doing important work for the firm right away because there aren't enough hands and minds at the firm to do all the work they have to do. So of course, they're going to be giving you important assignments, and you're going to be growing much more rapidly. You're going to be learning transferable and marketable skills immediately. So if you don't happen to like it, or if you're not being paid adequately, or whatever the reasons might be, you're going to be able to take your skills and go elsewhere. And that's going to be reflected in your income. Because you're going to be doing more valuable work, you're going to be more valuable to the firm. And they're going to recognize that in their pay. And if they don't, you're going to tell them. You're going to walk in and you're going to say, I'm doing important work here. I'm not being paid appropriately in my view. I'd like you to reconsider my income. And they probably will. And if they don't, you'll leave. And you'll leave and go someplace and practice with the skills that you've accumulated in that firm because you went someplace where you could learn something, again, transferable and marketable. I'm not talking about document review. I'm not talking about drafting basic legal documents. I'm not talking about drafting interrogatories. Okay, I'm talking about real stuff. I'm talking about client contact. Again, if it's trust and estates, drafting trust documents with the client's interests in mind, which has complexity and the like, stuff you'll be able to do someplace else. So your salary will, your income is because income is more than salary. Income is salary and bonuses. So your income will tend to rise more rapidly in a small place if you're going to be valuable. Also, if you consider yourself to be excellent, and I hope you do, then you're not being advanced by being in a class of 30 or 40 people who's coming into a firm in their first year. Because if you're excellent, that meaning that you excel the norm within the firm, you're not going to be likely to be treated any better than anybody else in the office. They can't do it politically. They can't pay you more, or not a lot more, if you're excellent than if you're average, or even frankly below average, because everybody just can get pushed along per class in the firm. On the other hand, if you think you're excellent and you're someplace like a small firm, your excellence is going to be reflected in the quality of your work, in the quality of your assignments, in the quality of what you're learning, what you're able to do, and how you're paid. So the point is, you're going to do fine financially in the private sector, regardless of whether you go to a big firm. That's the reality of it. That it wasn't just true for me, because, well, first of all, it was true for me, but it wasn't just true for me. It was true for so many of my classmates. Things weren't that different then. And the law students, the law school graduates, both at Hastings and other law schools where I've taught, who I've seen go out into the practice of law. Now, you might say, okay, maybe, but I'm risk adverse, okay? What you're saying sounds risky to me, Professor Specter. All right, let's just measure that risk adversity for one moment. I've been doing a lot of reading around the issue of how long lawyers last in big firms. And I think you already know this based upon your answers. The vast majority of lawyers do not stay in the big firm they go to. The vast majority leave. The numbers that I have seen more recently is that about 80% leave within the first 6 years. Obviously, it's a lower number in the first 3 years, but even in the first 3 years, it's a very large number. Okay. If you're going to go to a big firm, in order to stay, you have to beat the odds. You're going to have to be the 1 in 6, or 1 in 5, or 1 in 4 that lasts more than 4 or 5 or 6 years. I'm not saying you're going to get fired. No, of course not. Most people who leave, it's not because they were told to leave. Most of them left because they were miserable. And they went someplace else. You know where they went? To a small firm, or they went in-house, or they went into something non-law related. But if you have your mindset on going to a big firm, you are risk preferential. You are not risk adverse. You are risk preferential because you've determined that you're going to take the chances that you're going to be the 1 out of 5 who's going to stay. And you're also risk preferential because, in my experience, not my opinion, in my experience, you're not going to be developing adequate transferable and marketable skills. I've hired a lot of lawyers out of big firms to work at Shanin Specter, a lot. And I've seen what they've done in the big firm. They've been there 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. They've done nothing of value to working in our practice, nothing. Why would I hire them? I've hired them because of their aptitude. I hired them because they went to a good law school and they had good grades, and because they present well. And I tell them, we have a trial firm. We take depositions, we investigate complicated factual situations, we put cases in suit, we take discovery against depositions, we try cases that aren't settled. In a big firm, you don't do most of that. So you don't have any skills that are transferable and marketable to here. You're being hired because of your aptitude. You'll learn here and you'll be valuable and you'll do well, I think. But, why would you want to go someplace where the first time that you're developing those skills is in your second job, or the first time that you're happy is in your second job? How about being happy with your first job? How about getting the skills you need to practice law competently in your first job? I think that's awfully important. Let me check my notes. Just a couple of small things I'd say to you. First is that I would suggest to you that it's fine to do this exploration by, FaceTime and the like, Zoom. You don't have to go up this, again, Spokane apocryphally, to get the summer job. Employers will hire you based upon a FaceTime interview. I would try to, first of all, I would never take a permanent job without going there. But a summer job, sure. And our firm and many other firms hire people based upon FaceTime interviews. Another thing I'd like to say is you can also use your second and third years as an opportunity to do work in a place where you might end up working permanently, 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week. One thing that's come out of the pandemic that's good is that law firms are more receptive to having people work there who aren't physically on the premises. So it's something to take advantage of. Okay, I've talked for long enough. I would add that I take my role here very seriously. I am a resource to you. I will talk to you individually if you'd like me to. I'm not talking about after this talk. I'm saying you can email me and we can talk about any of the things we discussed today. But I think this is ultra important. It's ultra important. And you know what, honestly, it's up to you, really. It's not up to them. It's up to them to help you get a job. It's not up to them to make sure that you're satisfied professionally. That's totally up to you. And you will be if you work at it. But it's going to require serious work. It's more than OCI. Okay, I'd be happy to respond to any questions, comments, or criticisms that you have. Can I make a plug while you're thinking about it? 1 second, Gracie. While I'm thinking about it, I want to make one plug. This talk on Friday, this panel on Friday is an ultra good panel. Even if you don't want to be a plaintiff's lawyer or a defense lawyer in personal injury, it's an ultra good panel. I'm going to tell you why. Number one, Mike Kelly is going to be here. Mike Kelly is the finest plaintiff's lawyer in San Francisco, hands down, no doubt about it. And he is, first of all, one of the funniest people you'll ever meet. So just on pure entertainment value, he'll be great to be with. Number two, hey, he's the guy that paid for Room 100 over here. So just as a matter of courtesy, you want to go and thank him. And he's a wonderful human being. And you need to spend an hour with Mike Kelly. I mean, it's just a fact, number one. Number two, Cliff Smoot is the moderator of the panel. And Cliff was in my first class here at Hastings back in 2015. And Cliff is such an outstanding young lawyer. He is a coach for the trial team here at Hastings. He's a mentor to many Hastings students. He's helped many Hastings students get jobs. He is, by the way, he's a disciple on the 4-step method for getting a job you really like. And he's somebody that you can go see. He's at the Dean firm 6 blocks from here, and he will care about you as much as I do. So he's a good guy to get to know, but he's a lot more in touch, in my opinion, with the on the ground scene, especially in the planners practice in the Bay Area. But he's also just super sensitive to all the issues that we've discussed today. Okay, Gracie.
Has your firm ever hired somebody from Golden Gate?
No. But we've hired lawyers who've gone to undistinguished law schools, but not right out of the law school. My law partner, Tom Klein, who might be the finest lawyer in the country. I mean, he's been Super Lawyers Magazine. You could sort of turn down your nose at if you want to, but Super Lawyers Magazine has named him as the #1 lawyer in Pennsylvania for 20 consecutive years. That's pretty good. And he went to Duquesne. Duquesne is the Pittsburgh version of Golden Gate. Okay, and he did well at Duquesne, and he did get a good clerkship out of Duquesne, and he went to a small firm to start with, and then transferred to another small firm, and he's done okay. So you can go to a 4th-tier law school and do fantastically well. The fact is, in my field, the plaintiff's practice, almost no plaintiff's lawyers went to top-tier law schools, almost none, for complicated reasons that aren't worth getting into right this minute. But Mike Kelly went to Hastings, Cliff Smoot went to Hastings. The great trial lawyers in San Francisco, for the most part, didn't go to Stanford or Berkeley. They went to the Golden Gates and the Hastings and Santa Claras. And schools, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th-tier law schools around the country. Yes, sir.
In what ways would you be able to recognize professional satisfaction in a summer job?
How would I recognize professional satisfaction in a summer job? Are you glad it's Friday or don't you care? That's it. I want to see you be in a job where you don't care what day it is. That's the test. And speaking personally, I've never cared what day it is. That's how I know I got a good job. So you got to like your work. You got to feel like I want to go into work today. I like what I'm doing. I feel like I'm doing something, again, with purpose, something where I feel like I'm producing a result for somebody who I know. Maybe I'm making a difference to other people in their lives. I mean, there are all kinds of ways that you can find satisfaction for you. It's not a one size fits all. But my point is, you got to feel good about your work. And so whether you're looking forward to going into work, I think is the best test. You'll know. You will know. You will know. Yes.
Do you have any advice for how to turn the informational interview to help on the phone into a request or an inquiry into an open job position? Okay,
the question is, how do you turn the informational interview into a request for a job? First of all, it should not be on the phone. Do not have the interview on the phone. Have the interview by FaceTime or in person. The person needs to see you. Seeing people is so important. We've gotten away from that, with the masking and the like, but it's ultra important. That's why, by the way, I'm standing up here, not behind here, and I'm not wearing my mask, because I know how important it is for me to get you to understand what I'm saying and believe me by looking at me in the face and the eye. So don't do it on the phone. And I think it's, you ask your questions, and then again, after you practiced it in the mirror a couple of times, is to simply say to the person, thank you so much for all of your answers to my questions. Have been very helpful. Would there be an opportunity here this summer? That's it. Might there be an opportunity? Is there a process for applying for a job here? I mean, write down the words that feel the most comfortable for you to utter, but get it out, and it'll be fine. Other questions?
Comment on training opportunities in small firms. I often hear students saying to me, well, I'd really rather go to a boutique firm, but I really want to get trained. So I really want to go to a big firm first.
Okay, I don't understand the training thing at all. I don't believe big firms are training lawyers at all. They may say that they have programs, But it's like a program that you might have in law school. And if you want to take those programs, take them in law school. It's the work. The issue is, what's the work? What are you doing every day? I mean, if you're doing stuff, if you're in the trenches on whatever kind of work you're doing, again, working with people in trust and estates or family law, working with clients that have family law problems or personal injury or whatever it is, right? It's are you doing work that's real and meaningful? Are you the first person on a one-person team or the second person on a two-person team? Or are you the 8th person on a 7-person team? Or are you the 15th person on a 14-person team, right? How big are the teams? The smaller number of people on the team, the more essential work you're going to be doing. These things are actually very simple to measure. I had a lawyer who went to work for a firm whose name you'd recognize, but I'm going to leave him out of it. Come to me I made him a job offer and he declined because he'd already accepted someplace else. And he came to see me after 8 or 9 months where he was. And he said, I have to leave the firm. Well, what happened? I've been doing nothing but document review. It's a very fancy firm. You would know the name right away. And and this was a young man who should not have been doing document review. He was an exceptional law student, who was a student of mine and very capable. And I said, okay, tell me more about it. He said, well, the firm is representing an international bank that's under federal criminal investigation. And we have 160 lawyers working on the file. And I'm doing 3rd level document review. 160 lawyers working on the file. He's a first-year lawyer. Well, of course he's not doing anything meaningful. How could he be? So, yeah, I mean, the training is the on-the-job. The best training is the on-the-job training. Here's the file. It's a rear-end collision case or international collision case. It's the typical, as my students know, it's, the McAllister and Hyde car accident case. Here's the file. Go depose the plaintiff driver tomorrow. Here's the police report. Here are the statements. Go depose the plaintiff tomorrow. You do that a few times, you'll learn how to take a deposition. Now you'll be valuable to that firm or some other firm because you know how to ask a question. You know how to understand facts.
Question for Sue. What would you suggest include in an informational interview letter?
Well, first of all, I'm happy to look at the proposed letter. So that's number one, although you guys are very able to do that also. But it would be something like, figure out who the managing partner of the firm is, if you can, or if you can't figure it out on the website, write to the top person, or make a phone call and say who makes hiring decisions. Lots of different ways to get that. Write a letter. I'm interested in your area of practice. Talk about what you know about the firm. Make it clear that you've researched the firm and that you admire the firm. In other words, butter them up. Okay, and then tell them that you're interested in that area of law. You've had that area of law in law school. It's your #1 area of interest. You're interested in working and living in that part of, the state of Washington, for example. And could you, would they please give you 20 minutes for an informational interview? That's it. And then you'll compose your questions about opportunities in the area for this kind of work. What do young associates do? How do young associates develop business? How do firms develop business? What's your advice for me for being successful in this area of practice? It's a whole series of questions. Again, these folks can help you with it. You'll ask your questions, and if you like the place and you want to ask about a summer job, the words will come out of your mouth. John.
Yeah, how formal should we be during this informational interview? Do you want to show up with a tie and white shirt on, or just casual, like you want to stay out of the way, or what's the thought?
Okay, I believe that you get no second chance to make a good first impression. And like I was joking today with my students, and I was wearing a tie today. I've never shown up in a, my students know, I haven't shown up in a tie all year, right? But I was going to be seeing a lot of you for the first time, and I wanted you to know I took this talk really seriously. So I was coming to this talk wearing a coat and tie. And I think you should go to those interviews wearing the equivalent of a coat and tie. Other questions? Okay, we're at the 1 hour mark. I'm available to you, and thanks for coming.